Albert Einstein. The Man Who Changed Physics. A graded reader, Level B1. Chapter 1, The Late Talker. Albert was born on March 14, 1879, in the city of Ulm, in Germany. His parents, Hermann and Pauline, were Jewish. They were worried about their son. When he was born, his head was very large and shaped strangely. His grandmother looked at him and cried, "He is much too fat." As he grew up, the worries continued. Most children start to speak when they are 1 or 2 years old. But Albert was silent. He did not speak until he was nearly 3 or 4 years old. His parents thought, is he slow? Is there something wrong with his brain? When he finally started to speak, he had a strange habit. He practiced every sentence in his head, whispering the words softly before he said them out loud. One day, when Albert was 5 years old, he was sick in bed. His father brought him a small gift to make him feel better. It was a magnetic compass. Albert looked at the compass. He turned it left, he turned it right, and he turned it upside down. But the needle always pointed north. Albert was amazed. He understood that there was an invisible force in the air, a force that he could not see or touch, but which moved the needle. He trembled with excitement. He later said, "That experience made a deep and lasting impression on me." He realized that the world was full of hidden secrets, and he wanted to discover them. However, Albert was not a good student in the traditional sense. He went to school in Munich. The German schools at that time were very strict. Students had to stand up straight like soldiers. They had to memorize facts and repeat them. Questions were not welcome. Albert hated it. He felt like he was in a prison. He clashed with his teachers. One teacher told him, "You will never amount to anything, Einstein." Albert preferred to learn on his own. He read books about geometry and philosophy. He also learned to play the violin. Music became his escape. When he was stuck on a difficult physics problem, he played Mozart on his violin, and the answer often came to him. Chapter 2, Freedom in Switzerland. When Albert was a teenager, his father's business failed, and the family moved to Italy. Albert stayed in Germany to finish school, but he was miserable. Eventually, he left school without a diploma and traveled to Italy to be with his family. He enjoyed the museums, the sun, and the pasta, but he needed to finish his education. He decided to go to Switzerland. The Swiss schools were different. They encouraged students to think freely. Albert applied to the Zurich Polytechnic, a famous institute for science. He took the entrance exam. He did very well in math and physics, but he failed the French, botany, and zoology sections. He was not accepted. He had to go to a smaller school for a year to improve. Finally, in 1896, he entered the Polytechnic. College life was exciting. Albert made friends who loved to discuss science and philosophy in coffee shops. He also met a special student named Mileva Maric. Mileva was from Serbia. She was the only woman in Albert's physics class. She was serious, intelligent, and ambitious. Albert fell in love with her mind. He wrote to her, "I am so lucky to have found you, a creature who is my equal." They studied together and fell in love. However, Albert's mother did not like Mileva. "She is too old for you," his mother said. "And she reads too many books." Despite his family's objections, Albert and Mileva stayed together. Chapter 3, The Patent Office. In 1900, Albert graduated from the Polytechnic. He wanted to be a professor. He applied for jobs at universities across Europe. He wrote many letters, but the answer was always no. It was a difficult time. He was poor, he had no job, and his father was dying. He felt like a failure. Finally, a friend helped him get a job in the city of Bern. It was not a job as a professor. It was a job as a technical expert, third class at the Swiss Patent Office. Albert's job was to look at new inventions, like new types of cameras or typewriters, and decide if they were original. Most people would think this was a boring job for a genius. But for Albert, it was perfect. He was very quick at his work. He could finish a whole day's work in a few hours. This gave him time to think. While he sat in the office, he did not just think about machines. He thought about the universe. He thought about light. He imagined what it would be like to ride on a beam of light. He hid his calculations in a drawer when his boss walked by. In that small office in Bern, Albert Einstein was quietly preparing to change the world. Chapter 4, or the Miracle Year. The year 1905 is famous in the history of science. Historians call it the Annus Mirabilis, or the miracle year. In this one year, the unknown clerk from the patent office published 4 papers in a scientific journal. Any one of these papers was enough to win a Nobel Prize. Together, they were a revolution. One paper proved that atoms really exist. Another paper explained how light works. This was about the photoelectric effect. But the most famous paper was about special relativity. For centuries, scientists believed that time was constant, like a clock that ticks the same for everyone, everywhere. Albert said, no. He argued that time is relative. It changes depending on how fast you are moving. If you move very fast, time slows down. It sounded like science fiction, but it was mathematics. From this theory came the most famous equation in history. E equals mc squared. Energy equals mass times the speed of light squared. This equation showed that energy and mass are actually the same thing. A small piece of matter contains a huge amount of energy. Suddenly, the scientific community woke up. Who was this Einstein? He was no longer just a clerk. He was the new king of physics. But fame brings its own problems, and the 20th century was about to become very dangerous. Chapter 5, The Happiest Thought. After his success in 1905, Einstein became a professor. He moved to Berlin in 1914. He was famous among scientists, but he was not satisfied. He felt that his theory was incomplete. Special relativity explained high speed, but it did not explain gravity. What is gravity? Isaac Newton said it was a force that pulls things together. But Einstein had a different idea. He later called it the happiest thought of my life. He imagined a man falling from a roof. While the man is falling, he does not feel his own weight. This simple idea led to a complex theory, general relativity. Einstein suggested that gravity is not a force. Instead, massive objects, like the sun, curve the space around them. Imagine a bowling ball on a mattress. The mattress curves. If you roll a marble near the bowling ball, the marble follows the curve. According to Einstein, planets orbit the sun because they are following the curves in space. This was a beautiful theory, but was it true? In 1919, British astronomers led by Arthur Eddington tested the theory. They traveled to Africa and Brazil to watch a total solar eclipse. They took photos of the stars near the sun. If Einstein was right, the sun's gravity would bend the light from the stars. The results came back. Einstein was right. The light was bent. On November 7, 1919, the headline in a London newspaper read, "Revolution in Science, New Theory of the Universe." Overnight, Albert Einstein became the most famous man on Earth. He was the first scientific superstar. Photographers followed him everywhere. He received the Nobel Prize in Physics in 1921. Chapter 6, A Dark Cloud Over Europe. While Einstein's star was rising, a dark shadow was falling over Germany. The 1920s were difficult years. Germany was poor after World War I. People were angry. They looked for someone to blame. Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party began to gain power. They hated Jewish people. They called Einstein's work Jewish physics and said it was dangerous lies. They burned his books in public fires. Einstein realized that his home was no longer safe. He was a pacifist, he hated war and violence, but he saw that the Nazis were preparing for a terrible conflict. In 1933, while Einstein was visiting the United States, Hitler took complete control of Germany. Einstein knew he could never return. The Nazis took his house, his bank account, and his beloved violin. They even put a price on his head. He accepted a job at the Institute for Advanced Study in Princeton, New Jersey. He became an American citizen in 1940. He loved America because people were free to say what they thought. In Princeton, he was safe. He walked to his office every day, eating ice cream cones and chatting with neighbors. He stopped wearing socks because he thought they were unnecessary. He was the eccentric genius of the town. Chapter 7: The Letter. Einstein wanted peace, but history had other plans. In 1939, World War II began. Scientists discovered that it was possible to split the uranium atom. This process released a huge amount of energy. Two physicist friends, Leo Szilard and Eugene Wiener, came to visit Einstein. They were afraid. They told him, "The Nazis are buying uranium. We think they are trying to build a superweapon, an atomic bomb." Einstein was horrified. If Hitler had an atomic bomb, he could destroy the world. Einstein signed a letter to the American president, Franklin D. Roosevelt. The letter warned the president about the danger and suggested that America should research atomic energy. Because of this letter, the US government started the Manhattan Project. Thousands of scientists worked to build the bomb. Einstein was considered a security risk, so he did not work on the project himself. In 1945, the United States dropped 2 atomic bombs on Japan, Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The cities were destroyed. Hundreds of thousands of people died. When Einstein heard the news, he held his head in his hands. "Woe is me," he whispered. Although his equation E equals mc squared explained the energy, he never wanted it to be used for death. He spent the rest of his life arguing for nuclear disarmament and world peace. He famously said, "I do not know with what weapons World War III will be fought, but World War IV will be fought with sticks and stones." Chapter 8: The Final Equation. In his later years, Einstein worked on a new problem. He wanted to find a unified field theory. He wanted one simple equation that could explain everything in the universe, from the smallest atoms to the biggest stars, from electricity to gravity. He worked on this every day for 30 years. He wrote equations on his blackboard, erased them, and started again. He never found the answer. It was a puzzle he could not solve. But he was not unhappy. He enjoyed his life in Princeton. He helped young students with their homework. He played his violin. He supported civil rights for African Americans. In April 1955, Einstein became ill. He went to the hospital. He knew the end was near. He told the doctors, "I want to go when I want. It is tasteless to prolong life artificially. I have done my share, it is time to go. I will do it elegantly." Albert Einstein died on April 18, 1955. He was 76 years old. The world mourned the loss of its greatest mind. Today, scientists are still proving his theories correct. Black holes, gravity waves, the expansion of the universe, Einstein predicted them all. He taught us that imagination is more important than knowledge. Knowledge is limited, but imagination encircles the world. Conclusion. Albert Einstein was more than a scientist. He was a symbol of human intelligence and conscience. He showed us that one person, with a pencil and a dream, can change the way we see reality. He looked at the stars and saw a curve. He looked at humanity and saw a family. The end.